The last one, Ninti, Lady Rib, is also pun on Lady Life, a title of Ninhursag herself. The story thus symbolically reflects the way in which life I brought forth through the addition of water to the land, and once it grows, water is required to bring plants so fruit. It also counsels balance and responsibility, nothing to excess. Ninti, the title of Ninhursag, also means the mother of all living, and was a title later given to the Hurrian goddess Kiba. This is also the title given in the Bible to Eve, the Hebrew and Aramaic Ra, who was made from the rib of Adam, in a strange reflection of the Sumerian myth, in which Adam not Enki walks in the Garden of Paradise. 27, Making of man. After 6 generations of gods, in the Babylonian Enuma Eli, in the 7th generation, Akkadian Shapatu or Sabach, the younger Agagi gods, the sons and daughters of Enlil and Ninlil, go on strike and refuse their duties of keeping creation working. Abzu, god of fresh water, co-creator of the cosmos, threatens to destroy the world with his waters, and the gods gather in terror. Enki promises to help and puts Abzu to sleep, confining him in irrigation canals and places him in the Ka, beneath his city of Eridu. But the universe is still threatened, as Tiamat, angry at the imprisonment of Abzu and at the prompting of her son and vizier King Yu, decides to take back creation herself. The gods gather again in terror and turn to Enki for help, but Enki, who harnessed Abzu, Tiamat's consort, for irrigation, refuses to get involved. The gods then seek help elsewhere, and the patriarchal Enlil, their father, god of Nipper, promises to solve the problem if they make him king of the gods. In the Babylonian tale, Enlil's role is taken by Marduk, Enki's son, and in the Assyrian version it is Ashur. After dispatching Tiamat with the arrows of his wings down her throat and constructing the heavens with the arch of her ribs, Enlil places her tail in the sky as the Milky Way, and her crying eyes become the source of the Tigris and Euphrates. But there is still the problem of who will keep the cosmos working. Enki, who might have otherwise come to their aid, is lying in a deep sleep and fails to hear their cries. His mother Namu, creatrix also of Abzu and Tiamat, brings the tears-off gods before Enki and says, "O my son, arise from thy bed, from thy slumber, work what is wise, fashion servants for the gods, may they produce their bread." Enki then advises that they create a servant of the gods, humankind, out of clay and blood. 28. Against Enki's wish, the gods decide to slay King Yu, and Enki finally consents to use King Yu's blood to make the first human, with whom Enki always later has a close relationship. The first of the 7 sages, 7 wise men are of Galu. AB equals water, Gal equals great, Lu equals man, also known as Adapa. Enki assembles a team of divinities to help him, creating a host of good and princely fashioners. He tells his mother, "O my mother, the creature whose name thou hast uttered, it exists, find upon it the will of the gods. Mix the heart of clay that is over the abyss, the good and princely fashioners will thicken the clay thou. Do thou bring the limbs into existence. Ninma, Ninhursag, his wife and consort, will work above thee. Nintu, goddess of birth, will stand by thy fashioning, O my mother. Decree thou its, the newborns, fate. Adapa, the first man fashioned, later goes and acts as the advisor to the king of Eridu, when in the Sumerian king list, the me of kingship descends on Eridu. Samuel Noah Kramer believes that behind this myth of Enki's confinement of Abzu lies an older one of their struggle between Enki and the dragon Ka, the underworld. 27. The Atrahasis has it that Enlil requested from Namu the creation of humans. And Namu told him that with the help of Enki, her son, she can create humans in the image of gods. Uniter of languages. In the Sumerian epic entitled Enmerkar and the Lord of Irita, in a speech of Enmerkar, an introductory spell appears, recounting Enki having had mankind communicate in one language, following J. Chrysostomo 2019, or, in other accounts, it is a hymn imploring Enki to do so. In either case, Enki facilitated the debates between the two kings by allowing the world to speak one language, the presumed superior language of the tablet, i.e. Sumerian. Note 1. J. Chrysostomo's 2019 translation, based on the recent work of C. Ptolemaios at that time, as there was no snake, as there was no scorpion, as there was no hyena, as there was no lion, as there was no dog or wolf, as there was no fear or trembling, as humans had no rival. It was then that the lands of Suba and Hamazi, the distinctly tongued, Suma, the great mountain, the essence of nobility, Arkad, the land possessing the befitting, and the land of Marshu, lying in safety, the totality of heaven and earth, the well-guarded people, all proclaimed Enlil in a single language. Enki, the Lord of abundance and true word, the Lord chosen in wisdom, who watches over the land, the expert of all the gods, the chosen in wisdom. The Lord of Eridu, Enki, placed an alteration of the language in their mouths. The speech of humanity is 1.s.n. Kramer's 1940 translation is as follows. Sad smiley note 2. Once upon a time there was no snake, there was no scorpion, there was no hyena, there was no lion, there was no wild dog, no wolf, there was no fear, no terror, man had no rival. In those days, the lands of Suba and Hamazi, Harmony-tongued Suma, the great land of the decrees of Prince Shipyori, the land having all that is appropriate, the land Marshu, resting in security the whole universe, the people in unison to Enlil in one tongue, spoke. Then, Enki, the Lord of abundance, whose commands are trustworthy, the Lord of wisdom, who understands the land, the leader of the gods endowed with wisdom, the Lord of Eridu, changed the speech in their mouths, brought contention into it, into the speech of man that, until then, had been one. The deluge. In the Sumerian version of the flood myth, the causes of the flood and the reasons for the hero's survival are due to the fact that the beginning of the tablet describing the story has been destroyed. Nonetheless, Kramer has stated that it can probably be reasonably inferred that the hero's Iazudra survives due to Enki's aid, because that is what happens in the later Akkadian and Babylonian versions of the history. 27, 97, 99 In the later legend of Atrahasis, Enlil, the king of the gods, sets out to eliminate humanity, whose noise I disturbing his rest. He successively sends drought, famine and plague to eliminate humanity, but Enki thwarts his half-brother's plans by teaching Atrahasis how to counter these threats. Each time, Atrahasis asks population to abandon worship of all gods except the one responsible for the calamity, and this seems to shame them into relenting. Humans, however, proliferate a fourth time. Enraged, Enlil convenes a council of deities and gets them to promise not to tell humankind that he plans their total annihilation. Enki does not tell Atrahasis directly, but speaks to him in secret via reed wall. He instructs Atrahasis to build a boat in order to rescue his family and other living creatures from the coming deluge. After the 7-day deluge, the flood hero frees a swallow, a raven and a dove in an effort to find if the flood waters have receded. Upon landing, a sacrifice is made to the gods. Enlil is angry, his will has been thwarted yet again, and Enki is named as the culprit. Enki explains that Enlil is unfair to punish the guiltless, and the gods institute measures to ensure that humanity does not become too populous in the future. This is one of the oldest of surviving Middle Eastern deluge myths. Enki and Inanna. The myth Enki and Inanna, 33-34, tells the story of how the young goddess of the Inanna temple of Uruk feasts with her father Enki. 35. The two deities participate in a drinking competition. Then, Enki, thoroughly inebriated, gives Inanna all of the maize. The next morning, when Enki awakes with a hangover, he asks his servant Isamut for the mace, only to be informed that he has given them to Inanna. Upset, he sends Gala to cover them. Inanna sails away in the boat of heaven and arrives safely back at the key of Uruk. Eventually, Enki admits his defeat and accepts a peace treaty with Uruk. Politically, this myth would seem to indicate events of an early period when political authority passed from Enki's city of Eridu to Inanna's city of Uruk. In the myth of Inanna's descent. 34. Inanna, in order to console her grieving sister Ereshkigal, who is mourning the death of her husband Ugalana, Chiugul, Galbig, Anna Sky /Heaven. Slain by Gilgamesh and Enkidu, sets out to visit her sister. Inanna tells her servant Ninshuba, Lady Evening, a reference to Inanna's role as the evening star, to get help from Anu, Enlil or Enki if she does not return in 3 days. After Inanna has not come back, Ninshuba approaches Anu, only to be told that he knows the goddess' strength and her ability to take care of herself. While Enlil tells Ninshuba he is busy running the cosmos, Enki immediately expresses concern and dispatches his Gala, Galachara or Kurgara, sexless beings created from the dirt from beneath the god's fingernails, to recover the young goddess. These beings may be the origin of the Greco-Roman Gauli, androgynous beings of the third sex who played an important part in early religious ritual. 36. In the story Inanna and Shukalet-Yuda. 37. Shukalet-Yuda, the gardener, set by Enki to care for the date palm he had created, finds Inanna sleeping under the palm tree and rapes the goddess in her sleep. Awaking, she discovers that she has been violated and seeks to punish the miscreant. Shukalet-Yuda seeks protection from Enki, whom Botaro believes to be his father. 38. In classic Enkian fashion, the father advises Shukalet-Yuda to hide in the city where Inanna will not be able to find him. Enki, as the protector of whoever comes to seek his help, and as the empowerer of Inanna, here challenges the young impetuous goddess to control her anger so as to be better able to function as a great judge. Eventually, after cooling her anger, she too seeks the help of Enki, as spokesperson of the assembly of the gods, the Agigi and the Anunnaki. After she presents her case, Enki sees that justice needs to be done and promises help, delivering knowledge of where the miscreant is hiding. Influence. Enki and later Ea were apparently depicted, sometimes, as a man covered with the skin of a fish, and his representation, as likewise the name of his temple Eapsu, House of the Watery Deep, points decidedly to his original character as a god of the waters, Seons. Around the excavation of the 18 shrines found on the spot, thousands of carp bones were found, consumed possibly in feasts to the god. Of his cult at Eridu, which goes back to the oldest period of Mesopotamian history, nothing definite is known except that his temple was also associated with Ninhursag's temple, which was called Isagila, the lofty head house, E-house, Sag, head, Ila, high, or Arcadian goddess equals Ila, a name shared with Marduk's temple in Babylon pointing to a staged tower or ziggurat, as with the temple of Enlil at Nippur, which was known as Ika, Ka, hill, and that incantations, involving ceremonial rites, in which water as a sacred element played a prominent part, formed a feature of his worship. This seems also implicated in the epic of the Hieros-Gamos. God Ea, a statue from Khorsabad, late 8th century BCE, Iraq, now in the Iraq Museum. God Ea, seated, holding a cup. From Nazri, southern Iraq, 2004-1595 BCE. Iraq Museum. A sacred marriage of Enki and Ninhursag, above, which seems an etiological myth of the fertilization of the dry ground by the coming of irrigation water, from Sumerian A.B., water or semen. The early inscriptions of Uruk-Agina in fact go so far as to suggest that the divine pair Enki and Ninki were the progenitors of 7 pairs of gods, including Enki as god of Eridu, Enlil of Nipper, and Sui-En, or Sin, of Yor, and Bri themselves the children of An, sky, heaven, and Ki, earth. 14. The pool of Abzu at the front of his temple was adopted also at the temple to Nana, Arcadian Sin, the moon, at Yor, and spread from there throughout the Middle East. It is believed to remain today as the sacred pool at mosques or as the holy water font in Catholic or Eastern Orthodox churches. 38. Whether Eridu at one time also played an important political